So one of the things that I always think about or would credit some of the opportunities I've had outside of people just opening doors for me is saying yes before I felt ready to say yes. So a lot of times in my career specifically, people will either give me an opportunity or they'll really like push for me to do something like, hey, Jen, I think you should produce. And I'm like, oh, no, I'm good. And so kind of that pivotal moment where when somebody offers you an opportunity or you see an opportunity and you don't quite feel ready for it, and maybe it's imposter syndrome, or maybe it literally is just like, hey, I don't have as much experience as I would like to have before I do something like this.
Yeah.
And kind of like what that does when you say yes to an opportunity, because you never really know what one opportunity is going to snowball into other opportunities. Mm-hmm. And so I think that that's just like a really interesting concept to like look back on and say, either in your personal life or your professional life, when did you say yes, even when you were scared or even when you were like, maybe not yet? And what did that do for you? Like what adventures kind of opened up? What opportunities did you not miss out on because you had the courage to say yes?
Yeah. Yeah. Okay, great. Well, welcome to the Adventure Club. My name's Kate.
I'm Jen.
And yeah, it's an interesting topic to talk about for me because when you originally kind of like prompted me with that, my first thought is like, again, kind of going back to that whole idea of, I don't really have a career. So like, and I haven't had one for so long that like, what do I say yes to professionally? And it's like, there have been these little instances along the way, right? Like before I had Oliver and I would take on roles at work that, I moved from working at a very small campground as the recreation director and immediately got thrown into one of the largest in that system. And it was like going from managing literally 3 people to 25 people. And that was like and moving and living out on my own truly for the first time, because when I moved out to go to college, I had a roommate the first year and then I lived with Logan after that. And Logan and I were so like fused together from that point on. And saying yes to this opportunity that took me almost 4 hours north of my family and of Logan because he still had a year left of college. And then really having that like, okay, I'm 100% responsible for all of my bills. I don't have a partner that's helping me pay for that. But that, again, for me was like a decade ago, a little more than a decade ago. And I think that the more I thought about it, I almost feel like there have been times where I've said no when I wish I would have. Or I said yes to something wishing I would have said no because I wanted to do something else. And an immediate example for that is when we moved back to like our hometown area, Logan was fresh in his business and we had Oliver, and Oliver was just getting ready to turn 1. And then we started talking about putting Ollie in daycare. And then it was like, and then I could come help Logan at work, and that would make sense rather than me going and getting a different job and Logan having to hire help at work. So I said yes to that because it was like, okay, it feels like that's probably the right move. I don't know. But looking back on it, I mean, that then set the precedent for me for like even now, stepping in and helping Logan with work, where I wish that we would have just, even if it meant my whatever salary I could make on my own, doing my own thing, literally did just pay for whoever Logan had to help for him. I wish we would have done that because that would have given me more independence and more of that feeling of like pride for myself and maybe building a career for myself that could have eventually paid more than what Logan would have had to pay somebody else, and we would have banked money. You know, it was like, I said yes to Logan because I think that chronically in my life, I have been a yes man or a people pleaser at the detriment of what I really wanted.
Yeah.
And I think that has been a really hard thing for me to break. I mean, I don't think I'm good at it now, you know?
Yeah. I think that's, that's a valid point. I think it's not only looking back and saying like, oh, these were pivotal points where I said yes, and this is like the thing I got out of it, but also like where do I wish I would have said, no, I don't think so. Like, cause I really want to do this other thing. I do think, you skimmed by that job that you had. And I think that that's like, you basically went from like the T-ball team to like the major leagues. I mean, what you were doing was big.
It was massive.
It was massive.
And like, I felt such a sense of pride working that job. I was fresh out of college, and even though my bills weren't much, like I was paying them and still making enough to like take my friends out for dinner or like buy the clothes that I wanted to buy, even though I was, still buying stuff at like the outlet mall, but like, I felt like I really was doing it on my own, but I also had like this massive program, and we would have
an
like
award-winning program. Like you won a national award and you were young. Like, I think that's like you said yes to that role, knowing that you were going to be managing a large team, which I feel like for a people pleaser, that is a hard thing to say yes to. But then also like these were going to be your peers in a lot of way. Like it wasn't like you were going to be 10 years older than them. Like you were going to be their superior. Mm-hmm. But they were also people you wanted to be friends with. So I think that that's like, that. I don't know. I think that whole experience, I was so impressed by all the stuff you were doing. And it was so cool to see you in that element. And I think that's where, when we talk about like dreams deferred, I'm super excited about whatever you're going to do next. Like whenever you have the chance and the kids are in school, because that one opportunity right there that you said yes to, that you had the capacity to say yes to, like you immediately were like killing it. Mm-hmm. So
when I
it's
think
exciting
like,
to me.
Not to get teary this early in the damn episode, but I think that I consistently sell myself short. And I don't know if it comes from growing up and it being very pushed on us to like be humble. And, like it's important to be proud of what you're doing, but also recognize that like nobody wants somebody that's bragging all the time. Yeah. And I think I took that to like such an extreme in the opposite direction where it's like, oh, well then I'm like not shit. Like I'm not good at anything. Nothing that I'm doing is worth bragging about. And so when I was in that role, I felt really good in it. And I felt like I was really accomplished, and I was like doing it even when sometimes I was like, I don't know how I'm pulling this off. Yeah. And I think since then, and like being a mom and kind of being in this super long season of like that being my main role, and then I'm like a support role in every other aspect with Logan, or even with the 2 podcasts that I do, like now with this one, it's like I am like the support person. Broken Youth Club was off of Logan's idea for wanting to talk about his childhood. This podcast was your idea and kind of wanting to talk about these big adventures. And it's like, I feel like I sell myself short all the time, and I haven't put myself in a place of like being vulnerable enough to succeed or fail. So instead I just kind of like ride the middle wave of like, well, I'll just be a support person, because then like if a success is there, I can feel good that I like assisted in that. But if there's a failure there, I don't have to like feel awful that I did, like that I fucked it all up on my own, Yeah. I don't know. Yeah.
I think that the interesting part will be when you get to this next phase where you really have like the time to be able to pursue this stuff. You also though will have like, I guess literally a decade's more life experience, like personal work you've done, things you're more aware of. So it'll be interesting to also see, I think, what that space looks like for you with those tools in your toolkit. Because I look back now and it's like some of the opportunities I had in my probably early 30s. I don't know that, like I got it done. The job got done. People were happy. Everyone was happy but me. And so it was a space where I just don't think I was doing the personal work to manage the stress level. And if I had those opportunities now that I had then, I think I would have enjoyed that season a lot more. Anyone who knows me well, like my resume is so weird. I mean, I've just bounced around a lot. And like all good things. I mean, I basically, as soon as I felt like wherever I was at wasn't serving me or it just like wasn't a good fit anymore, I was always fine to like pivot, and I had the flexibility to be able to pivot. But I've done a lot of different things because I think in some ways, like it was like I didn't know how to fix the climate that I was in, my own personal climate. And so I was like, I guess I just need to like pivot and try something new. And a big example of that would be like when I got some of my bigger producing opportunities. Probably in like my 30s, I would just get so anxious, and I would think I was like managing my stress well. I'm like, girl, you're doing it. You're like, you got it. And then I'd like literally throw up on set, like not on set, like I would go to the bathroom, but I would be like so anxious. My little central nervous system was like, girl, this isn't good. And it happened enough times that I was like, oh, this is a pattern. Like this is a stress response. This isn't like, bad sushi or something. So I don't know. I think that it is like an interesting perspective. And I think that's like how I would encourage you to look at whatever this next season is like taking those lessons and how do you make those lessons work for you in whatever it is that's the next thing. Because you have decades more of, I'm sad to say this, but you have decades more work experience because we will never be able to retire.
Yeah, no, not us millennials.
That's not in the cards.
We're working forever, baby. Yeah. No, it's funny. Like, on the topic of dreams, I told Logan, for the longest time, I wanted to go to law school. And I think that like, in a weird way, it's another example of a time, not where I said yes, but I felt like I had to do it when I was told to do it, which was go to college. It was like, that was the expectation, to finish high school, immediately go to college, get through that, and then start your life. And it's like, I went to college and I knew I wanted to go to law school, but that was not something that I thought was actually an attainable dream for me. So I got my master's, I got my bachelor's in elementary ed because I liked working with kids. And I thought like, oh, I could be happy doing that. But like, I wanted to go to law school. And when we moved back to our hometown area with Ollie, when Ollie was 1, I went and met with the law school.
Oh, I don't know. I didn't know that.
I did. Yeah, I did. I went and talked to them and got a whole folder and figured out what it was going to cost and what that looked like. And then ultimately brought it back to Logan, was like, hey, I would love to like really think about doing this. And it was like, okay, like that's fine. Logan and I had a rough patch in our relationship, and it was pretty freshly after we were like back on track. And then I got pregnant, like 6 months later or something, with Arlo. And so then it was like, okay, well, I guess we're going to have to defer this a bit because I can't go to law school with a new baby. And then right before Arlo's first birthday, we moved out here to Washington. And then it was like, okay, well, I guess law school's just not really in the cards. It felt like that was dead at that point. Like, it's just never going to happen. And so I was like, okay, that's fine. No big deal, whatever. I probably would have been good at it anyway. I immediately start just trying to like downplay how bad I wanted to go. But recently, like, it's just kind of been that conversation of like, could we make that work? Could I go to law school, whether it's out here or if we end up, moving somewhere else, like, could it work out? And there's this part of me that like really wants it, like really wants to chase it. And then there's the other part of me that is like, maybe it's too late, but when I finally was like really looking into it, I had this thought of like, I've been a stay-at-home mom for a decade, but I could still graduate law school by the time I'm 40. And then even if I wanted to retire at a normal retirement age, that's 25 years of a professional career in that I could if I wanted to. But then I start battling just kind of that self-doubt of like, can I get it all done? Is that realistic? Is that selfish to take on the debt? Like, is it, can I be a present enough mom? Because like, that's immediately what I would hear from our parents, because I think that, they think I'm really lucky to stay home with the kids, and I am lucky to stay home with the kids, but that's like that wasn't the end all goal for me.
Yeah. Well, I think that there's, my hope for you is that if you decide that that's what you want to do, which I feel like you have already decided, you just haven't convinced yourself that you can. But I think that you could have a totally different career experience in that field than you would have had 10 years ago. Because I do think that you, just being a business owner and kind of the aspirations you and Logan have gone after, you guys didn't like dip your toe into anything. Like you guys were like, hey, we're going to do this screen printing business. And you bought a massive machine and got a big space. And then it was like, we're going to, you guys like don't dip your toe in. And so I think you've learned a lot. Like anytime you take big risk and you are your own boss and you have a lot of responsibility, you learn a lot of lessons. Like you can't be immune for that. And so I think you have become a lot stronger. And so I think that this all could be working for your benefit. Yeah. Even though it's painful to wait. And I know it's painful to wait. And I think like in a different part of life for me, like I wanted a partner for so long. And that was my goal really from the time probably I was like, honestly, like a kid. It was like, I never even dreamed of like, oh, I want a lot of kids or I want this massive career. I was always just like, I want a partner. Like I want a person. I want a teammate. Like I want my friend that like is going to be there forever. And I want this, like, I just want this like love and this thing. And I searched and searched and searched and couldn't find it. And, being in that space, I know there's nothing I can say to you that like really puts a balm on that pain, because it's like, yeah, all these other things in your life may be going well, but like the thing you really want, you still don't have. And I totally hear that. But if I had, in my situation, at least, if I had met someone like Seichend 10 years before, I don't know if we would have gotten married. And I say that not because of him, because of me. Like, I think I just, as much as I thought I was ready, I wasn't ready for the thing that I really wanted. And so now I'm, that dream was deferred for ever. And now I'm so happy. And it's like, and I know that like I'm with the right person and I have the tools to be able to like navigate that in the right way and to really enjoy it and appreciate it. And I think that that's like what could be waiting for you in the career is like, you will really appreciate that experience of having a career in a way that some people don't, because maybe they always wanted to be a stay-at-home mom, or maybe because like, you will have a different experience because it's been a dream deferred.
Yeah. I wish that I liked staying home as much as other people might like it. I thought about baking bread like 5 different times today. I was like, I just don't think I want to do it. Like, yeah. Like other people love to bake bread. It's like a big thing right now.
I'm so happy for the people that do.
I wish that I had a neighbor that was very giving and wanted to make homemade bread and bring it over. Just feels like a lot for me.
Yeah, girl, I feel that. Okay, I have one that's not career related. Things you say yes that you don't really know. This is one I didn't really know what I was getting myself into, I think. But it's so on brand for me because Dad always said that it was a good thing I was book smart because I wasn't street smart, which is true. I just never truer words spoken. I have no common sense about some things, like just like right over my head.
Yeah.
And so I was living with a gal in Nashville, probably when I was 23 or 24, and I'd always wanted to go overseas. Specifically when I was in college, I really wanted to do a study abroad program in England. No idea why. Not sure why. It was like my heart's desire, my deep heart's desire, but I had no idea why England. And it was just like way too expensive. And so that was not something that I could do, but I obviously like knew people that were doing it, and just always was like, oh, like that would be so cool. And so I was living with this gal, and one day we were just gabbing, and she was like, hey, do you really like want to go on a trip overseas? And I was like, yeah, totally. And I was like, but I didn't have a passport. I didn't have anything. And so she was like, okay, like let's book a trip. And I thought she said Australia because my geography, despite being book smart, my geography is terrible.
Yeah.
And so she had really said Austria. Mm-hmm. And I didn't even know Austria was a country. And so I think she had booked the flights, and I wasn't super involved in that because like I don't know anything about international flights. And I was getting my passport, and I'd see her around the house, in the morning. I'd be like, good day, mate.
She's like, what are you talking about?
Finally, she was like, what are you doing? And I was like, well, because we're going to Australia. She's like, we're not going to Australia. We're going to Austria. And I was like, oh.
I thought that was the same. So
where is that? Which I did read, this was within the past 6 months, that there is literally an entire gate I think in Austria for people who do the same thing. Like when they land, it's like, or not a gate, but like an info center. People are like
you're not where you think you are.
I don't know if that's true, but I hope it's true. Because it makes me feel better. But yeah, that trip was so much fun. And I definitely, had no idea. And I continue to make like the same mistakes actually along that journey. We each picked one thing that we like really wanted to do, and the other person, like we would just, agree to it and go together. And like, that was like a big deal back then. It was like, I was trying to figure out like, okay, how do you make like big financial decisions with another person? Mm-hmm. And she was my friend, but it was like a lot of money. And
yeah,
I don't remember. I think she did the Sound of Music tour, and I hadn't we watched Sound of Music before I went, but like we didn't grow up watching that. So I didn't have like a little special heartstring for that. And I thought I was choosing, like a cave, like when you would like go in and see the and instead I chose a salt mine tour, and she agreed to it.
A salt
and at the end, we literally
I don't even know what
like,
that means.
We got like a little bottle of like salt.
I love that you're looking around like, where are all the stalagmites and the stalactites? Where are the bats? It's just like salt.
Sure. And we have these stupid outfits we had to put on. But man, that trip was so fun. And that opened up my eyes. I think when I've been overseas a handful of times since then. And I guess it's probably like anything that like endorphin rush you get and that excitement when you see something for the first time. And when you're like plopped into an experience for the first time. I mean, it was just so amazing to be around people speaking a different language and just seeing people live their lifestyle in a different way. I mean, people would just like sit outside and casually drink coffee and not seem super stressed, and get all these old buildings. And
you're like, what is that like?
Yeah, what is that like? And yeah, I don't know. It was super cool. And definitely, despite the fact that it, was in Australia, which is where I wanted to go, it was an amazing trip. And do you remember how like so many funny stories came out of that? Like the girl I went with, her name was Julie, and she worked in the entertainment industry. So she was like a planner by trade, and she had made like an itinerary, booked all her hotels, which is really the way you want to go when you're traveling, is have somebody else do it.
Girl, you are that person now, which I really appreciate it.
I want somebody else to be that person. And the one night we hadn't booked a hotel, it was for this like town that basically like when you got off the train, you had to take a little boat across this lake. And then there was this small town at the base of a mountain. It was called Hallstatt. And that was the only place we hadn't booked a hotel. We were like, it's a small, like, what could be going on there? I'm sure there's going to be a room. We get there and there's a marathon.
Sure.
And there's no rooms. And we go to like the info square at the town center, and they're like, there's no rooms. And we were like, well, the train's not coming back. Like, we don't have anywhere to stay. And so they literally put us in, they called the town taxidermist. So, and they were like, hey, can you house these two girls for a night? And we stayed in this like old room in this like, it was so cold. I remember we were like in this bed that it was like something out of a movie. I mean,
it sounds like a horror movie, actually.
Well, and there were dead animals everywhere, and he was so old, like so old, and his wife was so old, and I was like, this is wild. And we went down to they had this like town festival wherever there was a pole and like these ribbons, and people were dancing, and we went down with him and like had a drink with him, and it was just the weirdest, most amazing trip. And I don't know. If I love anything, it's a quirky, weird story. So I was like, all the international travel now.
I know this was probably a different trip because I know you were on this other one with someone else that we will not name. Oh. But is Austria where the Cabbage Patch Museum was, where there was just like...
Dude, that's in Georgia. Like a state that we have in our country. Not the I think there's a country, Georgia. It's not the country, Georgia. Oh. The state.
I thought that was overseas.
Girl, you want me to take you there for your birthday next
Maybe. But I might. I remember thinking that was so hysterical when you sent those pictures of you in this museum full of Cabbage Patch dolls. I had no idea that.
Yeah, that place was so weird. I actually was looking for a photo today and I managed to stumble across those photos. And there was a really old woman there dressed up as a nurse. And she was like really, really in the role. And she was like, the baby's been born. And you would go get the baby out of the Cabbage Patch and you could adopt it. And it was, yeah.
Did you take one? You didn't, did you?
No. Mm-mm.
Missed opportunity.
Totally.
You used to love a Cabbage Patch doll.
Yeah, we were kids. I'm surprised Dawn doesn't have any of those.
I know. Those are probably worth something now. Dang. Yeah, she's too worried hanging on to like our old high school clothes. Like those are ever going to matter to us anymore. Girl, you can let those go. Okay.
Yeah.
I'm trying to think of any other like times where I've said yes to things that I like realistically shouldn't have, or, you know, outside of like all those times. Well, don't
think of it as shouldn't have, but just maybe you were like, ooh, do I really got this? Like,
well, I mean, obviously, like I said that episode 1, I was like, oh, you want me to be on this show here? This one, like, are you sure? And then even with Logan, with Broken Youth, it was like, are we sure you want me to be on that, or that it shouldn't just be like a solo show for you? I think because I just really like lack a lot of confidence that I have much to say, you know, like that I have much to bring to the table.
Well, would you say that saying yes to Broken Youth Club, because you guys have been doing that now for a while, what, like 6 months, 7 months?
Yeah.
What would you say you've learned about yourself, I guess, from that, and in relation to the fears you had that you didn't have anything worth saying?
Well, I mean, there are definitely people that listen to that show that will like consistently write me and be so sweet. And so there's like those parts that I try to really cling on to, because I mean, we don't get like bad feedback on that show literally at all. But every time we go to record, I'm like battling myself on like whether or not I have anything to bring to the table that week, or what's worth saying versus dealing with the consequences after. You know what I mean?
Yeah.
So it's a little different show. I mean, but I do super appreciate anytime I'm like shitty to myself on that show. People are always like so kind, which is like a very uplifting and rewarding feeling. But yeah, I don't know. I mean, I think, you know, it's funny being a mom, those parts are really hard. But anytime I have a babysitter come over and tell me that my kids aren't like miserable to watch, I feel really good about that.
Let's talk about being a mom, though, because that was an adventure that you took on 23
when I got pregnant. And what's so funny is I actually have a Facebook message that I sent Logan at the very beginning of April of the year that I got pregnant, literally saying we should have a baby. And I don't know why I Facebook messaged him rather than just texting him like a normal person, but I did. And it's there. And we had Oliver in January. So if you like do the math back, I got pregnant either right around then or maybe right before then. Like I already would have been pregnant and just not known it yet. But I remember like the first time I saw that pregnancy test, I immediately thought, uh-oh, you know, like I said yes to this. And then I think I immediately was like, that was a mistake, like not equipped to be a mother. And then being pregnant with Ollie, I just had such a good experience through it. Like it was a very easy pregnancy for me. I didn't have like the morning sickness really bad or anything like that. But I think that like parenting is such a strange adventure to be on. Especially when you're then also trying to dig in with your own experiences with being parented and the things that you liked and didn't like about it. And then you have a husband who has also a very different experience being parented and what he liked and didn't like about it. And then trying to like figure out what the right thing is. And there are a lot of times that I just question it. You know, you question all the things that comes with it. And I keep thinking that like it'll get a little easier, you know, like the kids will get bigger and they'll start to figure things out on their own. And instead it's like there are so many big questions coming up now with Oliver being 10, but Ollie is a grade ahead because we got big brains over here. And so Oliver really is like 11. And that's a whole other ball game to deal with. So I don't know.
Yeah. I think if you're asking the questions, that's like the best sign that you're doing the right thing, you know, like even an awareness to ask the questions about like, am I doing this right? Should I be doing this differently?
Yeah.
You have the coolest kids though. And you started having kids so young. I mean, I think about that like,
I think about that a lot. Like, who the hell did I think I was that I was ready to do that? Absurd.
Also, when you were in high school, you wanted like 6 or 7 kids. I remember you saying that, and I was like, that's like a team. That's like a sports team.
It's because I watched Cheaper by the Dozen, and they made it look so like chaotic, but still like easy and fun. And I was like, that would be great. And then I gained 50 pounds with my first pregnancy, and I was like, I can't keep putting 50 more pounds on over and over and over again. So maybe not.
You started calculating like 7 times.
Oh my God. But yeah, we were super little when we did, because I mean, Logan's a year younger than me. So Logan was freshly 23 whenever Ollie came out. And and we just tried to stumble through it for a bit.
So wild. I pulled some of your delivery, well, not delivery, but like right after you had Oliver. And you were like put on, you know, like the outfit. And we took some photos, and I was looking at this today, and you guys look so young, like
babies.
Yeah.
Like I hadn't even gotten. I feel like so many people, when you look back in your 20s, it's like you still literally have like baby fat on your face. You know what I mean? Like you still have like little kid features in your face up until you're really in like your later 20s, and so it's like, to look back on some of those things, it's super crazy. And, you know, Logan, we had both graduated college, but Logan was like running his t-shirt business out of our garage. And I had to quit my job because I couldn't pull long hours and still like breastfeed, but I wasn't doing enough. I couldn't produce enough milk to pump. And we tried to give Oliver formula one time, and Oliver like projectile vomited.
Oliver, no.
It was awful. It was awful. And so it was just like, it felt like there were all of these things. Then it was like, okay, well then I'm just supposed to stay home, and Logan's going to figure it out. And thankfully it was 2014 at that point. Things were a little bit more affordable, so it was okay to like not make a bunch of money, but then you're like just figuring out how to make it all fucking work, you know? And for a long time, I liked being a stay-at-home mom, but I also remember when Ollie was little, I'm like, this is boring. Like, little babies are sweet, you know, and like snuggly, but you only want to be snuggled on for so long. And then you're like, can you do something? Can you like be big enough that we can play? Or, I mean, I can't even like set you down because I'm afraid that you're going to somehow flip yourself over and then like be face down in the carpet, you know? Like, what am I supposed to? So I just had to hold Ollie all the time. I mean, it was just...
Yeah, I think I have obviously a different perspective than you on you having kids, but like you guys being willing to do that so young meant that I got to be an aunt and have the experience of having nephews that, even though I didn't have my own kids. And so that was like so fun for me.
Yeah.
So thank you. But yeah, we used to have like the best time. Our mom, so I was in Nashville. You guys were in Indiana. Our mom would take Oliver and do these like Aunt Jen weekend trips. And we would just have like the best time. And I'm sure we sent him home and he was like ornery because he was used to being, you know, the center of attention. But we had, but it was like, but he was. And I was thinking about like,
it was so great for me when you guys would do that because I could have that like weekend to just be a person again.
Yeah.
And not just be stuck to like being a mom and figuring that out. But I remember it just being this, I would call you guys and I could tell you were like overwhelmed. And I'm like, hey, it's because you've given Oliver every single moment of your attention and you're dropping everything to give exactly what you want. And like, you don't have to do that because Oliver will take every bit of that and run with it. So like,
yeah, but we had the best time. Like one of my favorite pictures from the trips when he would come up, we had a pool where I lived and we had like got these big inflatables and he had his goggles and he was like stoked. And he literally was like, I'm sleeping in the inflatable. And we have that picture of him like in the living room, like with his goggles on. And then we like move him to the bed and it's like the inflatable and the humans. And yeah, dude, it was just so much fun though. And yeah, I don't know. I love it. And now you have two others and they're also just like the cutest, quirkiest, most interesting little things. Like Arlo he did for a while love drumming. And I think now he's more in the keyboard phase, but he loved Journey and he was obsessed and he would just listen to those songs over and over and over again. And how old was he when he did that Journey like cover drum video?
I was 2. He was like freshly 2.
It has like 500,000 views or something, right? Like it's so, but I would show that to I would show that to my friends and I'd be like, I don't think this is like normal for a 2-year-old, right? And they were like, no. Yeah. But yeah, just the quirkiest things. And Simey and like Simon, I love calling him Simey because he's so little
all of us
cute.
do. It's such a silly little nickname. I'm sure it won't stick forever, but right now it is like just baby Simey.
So loves the planets and knows all the planets and wants to talk about the planets. They're just like so nerdy and quirky and sweet. And I'm obsessed with them. And they have been 100% one of my favorite adventures like of my life is being an aunt to them. They have brought me so much joy. And I think not to at all downplay like the season that you've been in and how that's been rewarding but hard. But your yes like trickled out it brought joy to so many people. And I know it's brought joy to you too. Yeah. But yeah, I mean, our family, like, God, those kids, they're just, they're just so fun. Yeah.
Well, and I think that kind of like tying into the yes theme with Oliver, like I said, I gained all this weight and I remember still living up there and trying after I had had Ollie, I was like, okay, you know, I had been athletic my whole life. And now I was in a body that was much bigger than I was comfortable in. And I was like, I'm going to get into CrossFit. I was like, I'm just going to go straight into it. Ollie was like 6 weeks postpartum. And I was like, I'm going to sign up for CrossFit and I'm going to do it. And it was like, you know, you had to commit to like 3 months and it was the most expensive gym membership I'd ever been a part of in my life. And I go in and immediately it's like, oh yeah, babe, you can't even like do the actual classes yet. We're going to like put you over here by yourself and you're going to like build up that strength first. And so it was like me and like 3 other people over here just like doing our best to be able to do like one single push-up, which like no fucking push-ups are hard. Okay. They are hard. But I had,
you have to train before you can go to CrossFit. Like you have to already be in shape. Yeah.
Yeah. And I just was not.
I was not.
And so that was a time where I said yes to wanting to do this thing and I went to do it and it was like just not the right time. I should have done it. That wasn't right. And then we moved back to our hometown area. I joined a gym at that point and worked with a trainer and I did really like her. And I ended up losing a little bit of weight, but again, it was like a very big financial commitment. And it was like, we wanted to buy a house and then we bought a house and it was like, we can't do this thing also anymore. Like I gotta cut it and I need to like, utilize the things that she's taught me back at home. And then I got pregnant with Arlo.
Another pregnancy.
And if anybody loves to do nothing during pregnancy, it's me. I'm going to eat whatever I want to eat, and I'm going to not work out at all, and I'm going to gain the weight, and I'm going to tell myself I'll just lose it after. But I hadn't lost all of Oliver's weight. And then I got pregnant with Arlo and gained another 40 pounds or so. And then we moved out to northern Idaho, and I joined a gym, and I got a trainer, and he was super nice, but I just like didn't love him. Like we just didn't click. He was nice, but we didn't click. So I didn't get excited to go work out with him. But then it didn't even matter because 2 months later, I got pregnant again. And Simon is the baby we did not plan for. Like we were certain we were done. And haha, we were not. Which, you know, we all joked about how Simon was going to have to be a terrible baby because Ollie was so easy and so
You
good.
had easy kids. Yeah.
And Arlo was good. He was just like colicky for a bit. He Arlo very specifically was like, you're going to hold me whether you want to hold me or not. Doesn't matter. But then we got Simon, and Simon genuinely was the easiest baby of them all. Like, so sweet and so loved by like the kids so quickly. We thought for sure that there was going to be a little bit of an issue because Arlo's like 23 months older than, so, you know, like almost was going to turn 2. And Arlo was super attached to me. But man, really took to Simon right away. Yeah. Simon's birthday is May 1st, and then Arlo's is June 3rd.
But, so
I had
hold on. How old is Arlo turning this year? Am I
5?
Oh, I did know that.
But more shocking, Simon's turning 3.
Yeah.
Which is really
in my head, they were only,
Okay. Yeah. So no, for 1 month, I had 2 under 2. In a place where I had no family, no friends, no support, no nothing. But I, you know, gained the weight with Simon, had Simon, and was just like at the heaviest I'd ever been, and so uncomfortable and just so like bummed because I could feel it, you know? I was like my early 30s at that point. I could feel how like hard it was for me to like do the things I was so used to being able to do back in high school when I was really athletic, or really even after high school. You know, I gained weight in college, but then like had a very active job. But I finally was like, I worked with a therapist for a very brief moment, and she was, you know, I was talking to her about how I really wanted to lose this weight, but I knew I needed to hire a trainer to do it because I was so far off from where I needed to be. And that made me feel terrible to like hire a sitter to watch the kids so I could go to the gym and then pay the money for a trainer. And she really helped me kind of figure out that like somewhere along the way, which I think for me realistically was always, I had like gotten it in my head that self-care was a selfish thing for me to do. That it was selfish for me to want to spend money for something that was purely for me. When in reality, me being in a healthier physical and mental space is a better thing for everyone.
For everyone, yeah.
But I didn't feel like that at that point. It was like, no, this is selfish. I should just like be disciplined enough to work out at home. But it's like, but I don't want to. Yeah. But I finally was like, okay, I'm going to do it. Logan was fully supportive of whatever I wanted to do. And I got in touch with a trainer out here. I just did like a Google search and found him.
You got so lucky because he's so great. But I got
so lucky because he's like genuinely one of the best people I know and so uplifting. And also like just happened to be voted like the top personal trainer in my area for like the 2 years prior to me reaching out to him, and then has won it every year since then. But I reached out to him, and he just like miraculously had an open slot for me. I wanted to go 3 days a week. And he was like, do you want to wait until after the holidays? Because this was like December. This was like second week of December I reached out. And he was like, do you want to wait until after the holidays and start like January 1? And I was like, no, I want to start now. Like, if you have a spot for me now, I want to start now. I don't want to like give myself the pass to like continue doing this really destructive stuff that I've been doing to myself for another 2 weeks. My first session with him was on Christmas Eve, and he still like showed up, met me. We did a very basic workout because at that point I hadn't moved like that in forever.
Sure.
And then I worked really hard, and I kept saying yes to things that I knew was like hard. I took on an extra day at the gym whenever he was like, hey, I have another spot open. Do you want to come 4 days? I was like, yes, even though I knew the 3 days was killing me. I was like, yes, I want to do that. Yes, I'm going to hire a nanny to help me with other stuff around the house too, because I just needed it, like I just needed the help.
Yeah.
And then I remember in March, I had lost like maybe 20 pounds at that point, but I was still like very overweight. Like I wasn't even to the point where I was like running yet, like I could not like run without worrying that I was going to hurt myself. But in March, I signed up for a half marathon that was happening in October. And I was like, I'm going to do it. Like, I'm not a runner. I've never been a runner. Even in my best shape, I've never been a fucking runner. But I was like, no, I'm going to do that. And I don't care if I have to walk it the whole time. I'm going to do it. And man, I just like tried really hard, and I really threw myself into it. And another one of those scenarios where it was like, I didn't think I could, but I said yes to myself, and I kept showing up, and I kept doing it. And by the end of it, I told myself at one point, I was like, oh, I'm going to do a Spartan. Like I always wanted to. I'm going to do it. I had lost 60 pounds at that point. I was like, I'm going to sign up for it. We're going to try it.
Dude, Spartan races are like chaos. I giggle because as you say, you're signing up for these things. I'm like, this is one way we are so different. I mean, there is no way I would sign up for a marathon. There is no way I would sign up. Well, I did sign up for like a Spartan something with you, but only because it was your birthday.
And I signed up for the big one. I signed up for the longest one. I don't know if it's, I think it might be a 20K or something like that. Like almost a half marathon, essentially, is what it boils into. But I signed up for it and I did it. And I remember like just crying at the end of it because I was just like, I cannot believe I did that. Like, that's awesome. But then I found out about, oh, well, if you do the 5, the 10, and the 20 all in the same year, then you get a trifecta. Like that's the trifecta. Your medals all click together and it makes a bigger medal. And I was like, oh, I'm going to do that. I'm going to do that. And I reached out to you and we did a trip for my birthday. And I did the 5 and the 10 the same weekend. I did the 10 and then you did the 5 with me. And it was like just one of those moments where
chaos.
I kept saying yeah. And like, dude, that course in California was scary. The 10K, it was so hard. And it was these like crazy steep hills that you had to go up and down. Like people were literally sliding down these hills on their butts because they were so steep.
Let me brag about you for a second though, because literally I went with you to your trainer one time.
Yes.
And Dad went. And I remember Dad was like, we have a picture of doing like sit-ups or something on the floor. But I went with you and I was just like, well, like I'll do a couple of the things or whatever. And I literally like 15 minutes into the workout, and I wasn't doing nearly what you were doing. I had to go stand outside and like lean against the brick wall because I thought I was going to throw up. And I remember you guys came out, you were like, are you okay? And I was like, leave me alone. I'm going to hurl.
Like I'm done.
I'm done. And I had to stop. And then when we did the Spartan, I think the 5K was the first, because I think I did it with you. And then and I was like, I remember being so sore. I mean, like, how could she do this tomorrow? This doesn't make sense. She's going to go twice as far. But when we did the 5K, you were so gracious because I was like, I can't do it. But we would get to stuff and they'd be like, oh, okay, like the women use this weight, the men use this weight or whatever. And you'd be like, is it okay if I just like try the heavier weight? And they were like, yeah. I would be like barely able to do the women's. And you're like, just heave out this stuff around. It was like the coolest thing to see you in that element of you put your mind to something, you said yes to it, you stayed committed to it. You didn't feel ready for it, but it didn't matter. Like you had your goal in mind and you were like, I'm going to do this. And I was so impressed because I was like, I can't even fathom ever being able to do this.
Yeah. Well, I think that like, I hope that one thing that people can take away from this is that, at least in my experience, the times where I've said yes to things that I felt nervous about whether or not I could accomplish them, I always did. I always was able to pull it off. I really genuinely can't think of anything right off the top of my head. I'm sure there is something that I have like massively failed at, but I can't, like, that's not what is coming to me now. I can't think of one. All I can think about are like these big wins that were that were tied to the times where I said yes, even when I felt really nervous. And so I hope people can find that little bit of like courage to do it. And like, that's where I'm trying really hard to step out of that like self-doubt mindset. Or again, even with this podcast, like, you brought it up and then you kept bringing it up, and I was like, oh, I'm saying yes to it, but I'm so nervous to say yes to it. And it's like, I just don't want to let the fear of letting myself down or letting someone else down keep me from doing things anymore. Because when I do it, when I show up and I do it, I remember the wins. I'm not remembering those failures. Like, and I remember what it feels like to get those wins.
For sure. Like that sense of pride, that sense of achievement. But I also think that even if you try something and it doesn't go super well, it's like there is something that to be said for just being proud of yourself that you tried it. Like, just being proud that you tried it. But yeah, I do think we talked to Roman, and Roman was saying he's like his worst critic. And I think we tend to, it's probably like to protect us from back when we were cavemen or something. But like, we tend to like look at the worst case scenario and like play out the worst case scenario. But I think we forget to fact check ourselves to say, well, what's the best case scenario? Yeah. Because the best case scenario could happen. The worst case scenario could happen. More than likely, something in between is going to happen. But yeah, I think just really trying to be cognizant of that. Like, how do I, when I hear that fear in my head, how do I say, yeah, but what if something really amazing happens?
Yeah.
And really leaning into that.
For sure. Well, and like even with me, like my most recent big win was the weight loss and doing what I did. And I got certified to be a trainer, and my trainer wanted me to come work at his gym. And then I just kind of fell into this, like, we moved not far, but we moved, and some other shit happened. And then I just kind of fell into this year of like sadness. 2023 was just a year of sad. And I gained a little bit of the weight back, and I was super frustrated about that, but I just couldn't pull myself out of that icky feeling. But I'm like coming out on the other side of it, and I'm trying to start saying those yeses again. And like literally my trainer reached out to me a week ago and was like, hey, do you ever think you're going to like come back? And not as a client, but like, will you will you come in and work? Like, and I so badly want to say yes. And I'm trying to figure out how to like make that work with our lives, but also like have that courage again of like, no, it's okay to say yes to that and then figure it out. Like a lot of times it just takes a little bit of like finagling, but so many things that we want to say no to, that like they are possible. You know what I mean? So often I think I listen to like, even just the idea of like, but it would be an inconvenience, and I don't want to be an inconvenience. So I'm just going to stick with what is working for everyone else. But I think what I need to like really lean into, and again, what I hope this podcast gives to me also, is that like, no, we don't have to like worry about being an inconvenience. I don't need to like put off what I want to do. Yeah. So that it's kind of like that thing where it's like, where I said that I'm a people pleaser, and it's like I move through the world typically trying to figure out like how to keep the peace, but then you start to really look at it and you're like, but whose peace am I keeping? And
Yeah.
it's like, I'm keeping other people. I'm not keeping my peace. You know, if I
Yeah.
want to do what I want to do to make me feel good. And I don't want to do that anymore. Like I want to prioritize what I want to do too. And I hope that other
Yeah.
people can kind of learn to have that confidence and let go of the guilt that comes with it. I think a lot of times with moms, there's that guilt of doing things for us first
Mm-hmm.
and needing to ask more of our partners or needing to switch up the way that we do things with our kids. But like, I don't want to do that anymore. I don't want to keep putting myself on the back burner. I don't think that's fair to me. And I don't think it's ultimately like what I want to show my kids, that they should expect that from their partners. You know, that's.
When I think like figuring out like who's the loudest voice in your ear, like even if they're not at that moment saying it, but like whose voice are you hearing? And like, why does that voice get a bigger say than you? And I think you have to like really ask the question of, I mean, in some circumstances, maybe it is like the right thing to listen to those voices if they're like cautionary and they're coming from people you really respect and whatever. But most of the time you're hearing things, they're fear-based. Even the fear that you're hearing is, it's not even like relevant or important. It's just like that person's experience and that person's lens, but that doesn't even like make sense in your life. And I think finding a way to just be able to say like, I feel strongly about this and it doesn't matter if other people agree with it or understand it maybe even. This is much minor by comparison, but I remember, I think I was like 24 and I was doing a lot of really cool photography at the time. Like I've been flown out to Vegas to do Carrie Underwood's, one of her music videos that like her and her manager had requested me, which was crazy town to me.
Yeah.
Cause I didn't even know that she like really knew my name, but I had taken a lot of photos on a lot of her music video sets and they had this job that was going to be out in Vegas. And, I knew they weren't going to fly me out there because like the production company, because it would just make more sense to get a local photographer. But at the last minute, they specifically asked if I was coming. And when they said no, they were like, well, no, she has to come. So we want her there. And so at the last minute, they booked me a flight. And I think I had like an overnight flight to get there. And so I had like a lot of really cool experiences. And I was photographing people and I was doing stuff that was like, I mean, it was fun. It was fun. It was outside the scope of anything I ever thought I would have the chance to see or do. I was I don't want to say like intimately involved, but I mean, when you start out in the industry, you're a PA, like you're kind of like the person that like, you need to not like be in the way, basically. You're like always trying to like be helpful, but not be in the way. And so that means like proximity, you don't get to see some of the stuff as close up. But as like the photographer, I got to be front and center, taking these, portraits of these celebrities on set or whatever. And out of nowhere, I was like, hey, I don't want to do this anymore. And I think some of my friends were like, why wouldn't you want to do that? And I was like, because I really want to teach. Like I always wanted to be a teacher growing up. And at the last minute, I had changed my career path to pursue entertainment. And I was like, and I just feel like there's something deep inside of me that is saying that this is something I need to pursue. And I know it's going to be expensive. And we didn't have any student loan debt coming out of our undergrad. So I was taking on like expensive student loan debt that I didn't even really understand what that meant. And I knew I wasn't going to make any money. So it wasn't like I was going to graduate and be able to pay that debt off really quickly.
Right.
And I didn't have any contacts in the education industry. All my contacts were in the entertainment industry. But I did. I signed up for college. I reached out to a bunch of programs in the area that had good reviews. And one of them responded back and was like, we're a week into lessons, but if you want to come by tomorrow, we can get you started right away. And I was like, okay. And I went and literally the next week I was taking classes and I left like the entertainment industry, arguably at a point where I could have probably leveraged that experience into doing a lot more of that type of work. And a lot of people didn't understand it. And I was like, that's okay. Like, you don't have to understand it.
Yeah.
So I think there is like a point where, and again, our experiences are so different. I didn't have, the added layers of, financially, does this impact someone else? I have mouths to feed. I have a spouse that I'm supporting. I didn't have that. So I was able to really move through those decisions a lot differently than you have been able to do.
Yeah.
But yeah, I just felt like that was what I was supposed to do. And I did it. I taught elementary school for 4 years until I had like the least amount of money I'd ever had in my bank account. Like, I think I was like back to my high school years.
Yeah.
And I was like, I literally can't do this. I can't do this, especially in Nashville. But honestly, even I moved back to Indianapolis for 1 year and I couldn't really afford to do it there either.
Which is crazy because you, at that time, that district that you were working with was the highest paying one in the state. And still, it was like, how are people doing this if they don't have partners? Like, what? Yeah, no, I mean, I was like, oh, I'm going to have like 3 roommates forever. And that wasn't something I just didn't want anymore. And so, because of the financial impact of doing that, which I would never take that experience back. It was one of the best things I think I could have done for myself because it really gave me a good perspective on really like what fueled me, and that was helping people. And I think I'm back in the entertainment industry now, but I think channeling like what really drives you, what makes you feel satisfied, and using that in the workforce was just like a revelation, I guess, for me. Like, that's how I'm going to be the most happy. If I can't teach, if I can't do something that's like philanthropic, is how can I really pivot my lens to be like, this is about helping people in whatever way, even if it's literally like the business owner. So I came back to Nashville with like no dollars in my bank account and got back into the entertainment industry literally out of just like necessity. And it was supposed to be a temporary thing, and then it snowballed. And I ended up producing pretty quickly, which was terrifying. And I definitely fought it. I mean, when I left, I PA'd some, but I mostly done photos. And so when I came back in, I coordinated and then I managed, and I worked up. But within like 3 or 4 years, I was producing, and that was like just the most terrifying thing to me. But when I think back on that experience, I'm just like really proud of myself. I'm proud of myself that I think I took some like years off of my life expectancy, but I'm just like proud of myself because I had to get like really mentally tough, especially when my body was betraying me with those puking spells. But yeah, I did a lot of like things I just didn't think I was capable of doing, which I guess is kind of silly because you go back and it's like, okay, well, you got plopped on set with a camera and a little bit of photo experience, and people were happy and they were hiring you. But you quickly forget, especially if you're pivoting into something even remotely different, you start to like, that self-doubt creeps in. You're like, I don't know, can I do it? Like, when are people going to find me out? Which is literally funny because that's an exact phrase that Roman said a couple of times on the episode with him, is like that fear of being found out, like that you're not as good as people think you are. And it's like, but like also like, what if we are? And what if we are? And I credit a lot of that to, the courage to say yes when I felt like I had no business saying yes, but to the people who saw and gave opportunities, who said like, listen, I see you. I know you can do this. You just need to say yes. Yeah. It's like, okay. If you believe in me, I'm going to use that, and I'm going to try and believe in myself. But, and that trait of being kind of like thrown in and having to just figure it out really quickly has been the past 10 years of my work experience. Yeah. For sure. Oh man. Well, cool. I hope that everybody else, anyone that's listening, can think back to things that they said yes to that worked out for them, or if there's a yes that you're holding out on. I hope you can take a really good look at it and see if you're holding off for valid reasons, or if you are holding off for fear-based reasons, or imposter syndrome reasons, or not wanting to feel guilty about whatever choice you're making. Because the things that I a lot of times will say it doesn't feel like I've accomplished much, but the things that I have accomplished feel really good. So,
yeah. And also from an outsider's perspective, you've accomplished a lot more than I think you give yourself credit for. You're probably your harshest critic, but yeah, you do. It feels really good. It's important that it feels good for you, but it also like impacts other people. The podcast you and Logan have done has impacted a lot of people in really, really valid and amazing ways. Like I saw that post where a girl didn't have the finances to get her brother's ashes home from an unexpected death. And like that community that you guys have built through the Broken Youth Club podcast, like rallied around and got help for that person. And like, just, there's a lot of community being built that I think you should be really proud of. And that is a major accomplishment. And not even at like, I know you don't look at it and say like, well, that's an accomplishment but it's like, you should just feel really good about that because that's you out in the world making a change for other people and making their lives better.
You're doing my best. I'm trying, but oh God, it's scary.
It's scary.
It's scary to have anybody really like listen to the things that I'm saying because sometimes I don't know if what I'm saying is the right thing or not. But it's nice to feel like some people think that I am saying right things sometimes. So.
Thanks so much for listening, and we're so happy you're here. And we look forward to introducing you to some other really fun people who have really fun stories to tell. Roman, such a character. We adore him. And we have some other people slated to be on the show in the next 6 weeks that are just like beloved people of mine. Like one of the people, as soon as I met him in the entertainment industry, I was just like, dude, he's so much fun and just such like a cool person to be around. I just saw that he's been in Nashville now for like 10 years exactly. And what he's accomplished in 10 years in Nashville just makes me smile so big because I love him so much.
I'm so excited to have him on. I also saw that post, but I met him on a shoot where you hired me to PA. And I think he was like a step above a PA at that point. Like he was so early in his career on that shoot. And it's been so fun for me to like sit and then kind of, because him and I totally kicked it off right from the beginning. Like he's so fun. Yeah. And just kind of watching him kind of build up. I mean, I don't want to give too much away on like the climb of his career, but it's like, it's going to be so fun to talk to him and catch up because I haven't talked to him in forever.
Yeah. And we have some other people that we just like, one, they have such cool stories, but they're just like cherished people to us that will be on the show and just talking about their success and how they got there. And some of them are very weird stories, how they got there. There was no straight line. So I'm just really excited to share that with you guys and thankful that you're listening.
Yeah. Cool. Okay. Love you. Bye.
Bye.